The Special Appellate Panel has publicised the group of judges tasked with examining the complaint by the Public Commissioner regarding the decision to interrupt vetting of the former Chief Prosecutor Adriatic Llalla. The Democratic Party's leadership will meet tomorrow to discuss the proposals for changes to the party's statute. On the basic principles that have been presented, they must be approved by the National Party Assembly. A preliminary report by a task force of the State Police suggests that hundreds of hectares of land in coastal areas have been ascertained through corruption, with even the sea itself in Llalla having an owner. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock on Friday the 13th of April 2018. Welcome to the English edition of Aura News. My name is Alexandra and I'm here to bring you the day's top stories from across the country translated into English. Former Chief Prosecutor General Rama will be one of the 5 judges at the Special Appellate Panel to determine the decision for interrupting the vetting process for her successor, Adriatic Llalla. A week after the lottery was held, the panel decided this Friday to make the 5 members of the judicial body public. The relator of the case will be Judge Luandatsi, while the panel will be run by Judge Sokol Chomo. Ina Rama, Albana Shtula and Ardian Haidari will be the other members. A few months ago, the Independent Qualification Commission decided to terminate vetting for the former Chief Prosecutor following his request to leave the system. But this decision was appealed by the Public Commissioner, who did not agree with the decision made. Meanwhile, it is expected that the Special Appellate Panel will set the date as to when the review of the case will begin, and the Public Commissioner will also submit his reasoning as to why he does not agree with terminating the vetting process for the former Chief Prosecutor. No matter the decision regarding the vetting process, Adriatic Llalla will find himself before the courts for another open proceeding. The Durrës prosecution has registered a criminal proceeding for several charges for the former Chief Prosecutor, including wealth hiding, as well as non-declaration of significant amounts of money when passing a border crossing point. The objective of the investigation will be to determine whether Llalla left with money on his person when he travelled to Germany via Rennes Airport. The Democratic Party is in its final stages of preparations for a National Party Assembly that has been called for 28 and 29 April, which will be developed only for the adoption of the party statute. At the Blue headquarters, a working group consisting of Arben Ristani, Eno Bozdo and Fatbarda Kadili are working on statutory changes. Tomorrow, some principles that are expected to change the founding law under which the Democratic Party functions will be presented for debate by the leadership of this political force. After the debate, the principles will be drafted and next week they will be discussed at the National Council and then will be approved by the Assembly. Even those who are known as critics of Lulzimbasha have also submitted proposals for statutory changes. Former MPs who are critics of Basha have also received an invitation, including Josefina Topali, Mailinda Bregu, Astrid Patosi and Ridvan Bode, even though they are not delegates. But it seems that the gap between Chairman Lulzimbasha and the MPs critical of him is not so small. Astrid Patosi made a sarcastic comment via Facebook, calling the National Party Assembly a meeting for all the lovers of the statute. Even in the actual statute, it is not stated anywhere that decisions or agreements or disputes, alliances or coalitions can be taken by a single man. Do you really think that we are so naive to wait another 3 years to prove that Luli will lie to you, even if you simply ask for the time? Wrote Astrid Patosi. A part of the Velipoja Sea is owned by some people who, in collaboration with the Immovable Properties Office, have falsified the ownership documents. This scandalous finding was ascertained in a preliminary report by a task force of the State Police, responsible for checking property documentation across the coast. A former official from North Albania, who was murdered with a Kalashnikov some time ago, is now thought to be implicated in this scandal. Experts have raised their suspicions regarding the involvement as property documents have been found in his apartment precisely for the land in Velipoja. The investigation has just started and is still ongoing from a police perspective. On the other hand, 2 municipal employees are under surveillance by the police task force in Himara as they are suspected of collaborating in falsified property ownership. In total, it is thought that there are hundreds of hectares of land across the coastline under suspicion of being allocated ownership through corruption and abuse of power. Similarly, investigations are being conducted in Durrës, Vlora and other coastal areas. Deputy Minister of Infrastructure and Energy, Artan Shkreli, under the framework of talks with residents of Has and Kukas, said the tariff for the national highway will be set. According to initial feasibility projects, between 240 and 260 million euros are needed to complete this road. The road must be completed definitely. If not, all those billions that have already been spent will go towards degradation, said Artan Shkreli. Mayor of Has, Llalla, has said the tariff should be set taking into consideration the economic situations of the residents. Residents living in Has are not against the tariff, but the tariff should have special concessions for us that use this road more often, in accordance with the social and economic situation of the area. The tariff should be stimulating for the residents of our area, said Llalla. The former mayor of Kukas and the president of the Kukas football team, Safet Jitse, said that the proposed construction of the airport will bring greater development to the city. He went on to add, regarding the tariff, I believe that the government will tell us their decision very soon. This solution will be acceptable and in the favour of the citizens, said Safet Jitse. Fighting against human rights violations can be a dangerous aspiration that may possibly lead you to a fatal end. At a meeting where the protection of human rights defenders was discussed, some rather fearsome figures were announced when Amnesty International explained that 312 activists were killed in 2017 alone. 312 people were killed throughout the world during 2017 for defending human rights, said the former people's advocate Igli Totozani. Although Albania bore no contribution to the fatal ends of those who fought for the protection of human rights, the current people's advocate Irina Balanca remained very critical of the Albanian government. Positive rapport with the government, but they are interested in other issues they consider more important, stated Balanca. Even the UN, EU and Council of Europe representatives asked for more government policies to guarantee people who are protected and promoted by human rights. More dialogue is needed between civil society, government, parliament and independent institutions in the identification of legislation for the protection of every human being who protects human rights, said the representatives. With the objective of increasing the quality of teachers for future generations, the Ministry of Education has announced their intention of raising the bar for high school graduates wishing to apply for education courses at university. The proposed changes will mean that a university applicant must achieve an average grade of 7 out of 10 in order to be eligible to study any of the teaching disciplines. However, the Ministry seems to have no university directors by its side in regards to such reforms for educational programs. The Dean of the Faculty of History and Philosophy, Sabri Lachi, is against the rise of the average grade, saying that in rural areas they will be most affected. For students who achieve results delivering a perfect average of 10 in their final year of high school, but choosing teaching as their career path despite being able to study more advanced degrees, will be offered additional concessions from the Ministry such as scholarships or assistance with study fees. The Ministry of Education will soon launch a campaign across the districts to encourage high school students to choose teaching disciplines for their tertiary studies. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening and be sure to join me again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.